I thought you wanted to switch parts.
Yeah. So I'm gonna address. Oh, I'm gonna wait for a little bit. There were actually 53 people that registered. So
Wow.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
we're
all
rolling in.
53. Yeah, I don't know if all 53 are coming in. I'm just gonna wait for a couple of minutes
Yeah.
because people are trickling in before I start. Okay. Anyway. Okay, I'll start. So, welcome everyone. Welcome. My name is Mary Vic Aplaon. I am the support services manager here at AGI. For those who are joining us for the first time, here is a little background on us. Alzheimer Group is a charitable organization that supports families and individuals living with dementia. Our services include activities for people living with dementia, individual and family counseling, support groups for caregivers, in courses, workshops, and webinars. Our educational initiatives are made possible by the generous support of the Lassner Learning Center and the Lindsay Memorial Foundation. Before we begin, please note that while the chat feature is unavailable, there is a Q&A button space for you to ask your questions. You may type your questions at any time throughout the presentation, and we will address them at the end. Today, we are pleased to welcome Samuel Gillman and Lylou Guilloton. So Samuel is a PhD student in the Health, Kinesiology and Applied Physiology Department of Concordia University. Lylou is a master's student in the Health, Kinesiology and Applied Physiology Department of Concordia University. They both study under the supervision of Dr. Dang-Vu at the Sleep, Cognition, and Neuroimaging Laboratory. So welcome, Samuel and Lylou, and the floor is yours, or the Zoom platform is yours.
The Zoom floor is ours. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Let us actually get this screen shared. Well, okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm Sam, this is Lylou. We're all going to talk to you guys a bit about sleep and some of our ongoing projects. Very briefly, this is our team. See Dr. Dang-Vu, he's the research director. We have Lylou and myself. And let me get a laser pointer. Oh, let me start with, what is sleep? When, like, as scientists, we want to be very nitpicky. We want to create some sort of criteria that we can observe to define what things are. So sleep, there's a typical posture for us. We're normally horizontal. We keep still. Our responsiveness to like the environment or other stimuli is decreased. And sleep is an altered state of consciousness. It's not like someone, I always say, someone hits you on the head and you pass out, and then you kind of poke them and they don't wake up. In that case, it's not reversible. For sleep, it is rapidly and spontaneously reversible. If you're asleep and the fire alarm goes off, well, hopefully you'll wake. Hopefully you're going to wake up really, really quickly and be very awake. And sleep it's universal in the animal kingdom. Virtually every single animal sleeps, and as such, every animal sleeps in its own way. So, for example, a giraffe, they need, what is this? 1.9 hours of sleep overnight, but then a bat needs 20 hours of sleep per night. So different sleep needs vary by different animals, and that can also vary within people. And which also supports the notion that sleep is very important. It's so important, it's just as essential as eating and drinking water. It restores pretty much our entire body, and especially our brain, and it allows us to function optimally when we're awake. When you don't sleep, you get sick. If you don't sleep for too long, you actually might die, but that's a whole different study. Why do we sleep? like I said before, it's good for our physical and mental health. If you don't sleep well at all, or if you have a sleep disorder, that can make you more vulnerable to developing health issues like heart disease and even dementia. And sleep is also really prominent among other mood issues like with anxiety and depression. When sleep does do well, are like athletes, right before the big game, athletes need to sleep really well, or if a student has a big exam, it's important to sleep well because it really supports physical performance and mental performance, like your memory, your attention, and that really impacts like your ability to drive well, working in school. And as well, when sleep doesn't, go very well, your mood can get worse. You can become more irritable. You can have like emotional dysregulation, and like the part of like your nervous system that is like responsible for managing stress doesn't work very well. And so your stress responses can be overactive as a result of poor sleep. So let me go through a scenario with you guys. So this is, if this were a room, I'd say now with a show of hands, let's, I'd like to know what everyone thinks, but we're not going to do that here. So in this scenario, let's say I usually sleep 7 hours a night, but last night I only slept for 5 hours because I went to the theater and I came home late. What should I do? Do I drink? Let's say I have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I don't, I drink tea. So let's say I normally have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. Do I drink even more coffee in the morning? No. You want to stick to your normal caffeine levels. Sleep is about balance, and coffee can throw that off balance, and you want to stick to your normal caffeine levels. Do I take a nap during the day? Definitely. Naps can be great. You've lost some hours of sleep, and it's good to get those hours back. It's not necessarily a zero sum where, oh, I lost 2 hours of sleep, therefore I need a 2-hour nap. There is a component of the quality of the sleep that can make the sleep more intense, where if you lost 2 hours of sleep last night, maybe a half hour to a 1-hour nap with a really high quality sleep can get those 2 hours back. Do I go to bed earlier? No. You want to keep your normal sleep schedule. And likewise, do I push my alarm to wake up even later? No, you want to keep your sleep schedule. Your sleep schedule is so important because the schedule is what allows your body to know the best time to sleep and the best time to be awake. And you want this to align with your sleep pressure, or because homeostatic pressure, which I'll touch upon in this slide. So as like a central dogma of sleep, the longer you're awake, the more likely you're going to fall asleep. And the longer you're asleep, the more likely you are to wake up. So normally, homeostasis just means balance. So, and that plays a role into the sleep pressure, how pressured your body is to sleep. So let's say you sleep overnight and it's 7 a.m. At this point, you've slept for a long time and your body is going to want to wake up. And then from 7 a.m. approaching towards the night, the sleep pressure is going to increase and build, and you're going to get sleepy, and then you're going to want to go back to sleep, and this pressure is going to go down. And then because you've slept this long, you're likely to wake back up again, and then have your next day, so on and so forth. This happens every day of your life. Now, if you're sleep deprived, let's say you stay up for, what is this, an extra 24 hours, which we don't recommend doing ever. You wake up, you go throughout your day, your sleep pressure builds and builds and builds, but it doesn't go back down. It keeps building, and this pressure keeps going up and up and up, and then you're going to go to sleep. This pressure increases, well, it should be exponential, but then this drop back down is going to be a steeper curve compared to this one. If you nap, you're awake during the day, you're feeling sleepy around 5 p.m., you nap, and then this pressure goes back down because you got some sleep back. And then you wake up, and then because you're awake, the sleep pressure builds again, but now it's nighttime when you want to go back to bed. But when you do nap, the intensity, the pressure that drives the intensity of the sleep is not as strong. So when you do have this nightly sleep after a nap, it's not as intense. Now, another very important role, everyone's heard of your internal clock. You want to pay attention to your internal clock. Your internal clock is really important because over millions of years, it's developed into this really nice, natural 24-hour cycle that matches the sun, telling us the best time to go to bed to wake up. So I hope everyone's heard of the hormone melatonin. The melatonin it's not a sleep hormone, it's an internal clock hormone. So it builds up towards the evening. In the morning, it's at its lowest. As it approaches the evening, melatonin will build up, telling our body, hey, time for nighttime based activities, which means, resting, digesting. That also means going to sleep. And then it peaks about towards the, actually, it just should be shifted a bit later, but towards the night it peaks, and then it naturally wants to go back down and reduce itself. And then at that point, it lets our body know, hey, even if there's no sun to tell us what time it is, we're still going to want to wake up around the same time we normally would. So around 7, and then we go back to sleep. Sorry, then we're awake, it's at its lowest, and then we were awake during the day, and then it builds up again. For a second scenario, I'm gonna combine these two. The scenario will combine the two, and then I'm gonna combine them in a bit more of you're gonna see some more graphs. So let's say I'm going on a trip to France. My flight leaves at 10 p.m., which is 4 a.m. In Paris time, and that's a 6-hour time difference. And I have plans during the day, and it's Paris. I want to do some stuff during the day. However, I'm afraid I'll be too tired during the day to enjoy myself. What do I do? Do I sleep on the plane? Definitely. Always sleep on the, it's really, not always sleep on the plane, but it's really good to sleep on the plane because if your flight leaves at 10 p.m., it's 10 p.m., you're going to be tired, but it's 4 a.m. in Paris. If you're 4 a.m. in Montreal, as an example, you're going to want to be asleep. So sleep on the plane. You do want to sleep on it because when your plane arrives in Paris, it's going to be daytime. Do I go to bed? Oh, I shouldn't do it. Do I go to bed after my plane lands at 7 a.m. local time, so 7 a.m. in Paris, because my body thinks it's 1 a.m. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that your body is going to readjust to this new time zone and not stick with the old one. So it's really important that your internal clock updates. Do I drink coffee? Yes. Well, yes and no. You want to stick to your normal caffeine levels. You don't want to drink above and beyond of what you normally have. Do I take a nap in between my activities? Also no. You want your sleep pressure to build up. You don't want it to reduce, because by the time it's 10 p.m. in Paris, it's 4 p.m. in Montreal. You want to make sure you're going to be tired by the end of the day, and you don't want to nap. You're traveling. You're supposed to be a little bit tired. Do I take melatonin, that sleep hormone? Actually, yes. This is one of the very few occasions where taking melatonin can be beneficial. You want to take it at the time when you want to be tired the next day. Because like I said, it tells your body, hey, it's nighttime, time to do nighttime things, which is sleep. Sleeping pills. If you ask anyone in the sleep research field, are sleeping pills good for me? The universal answer is always no. No, you don't want to take sleeping pills. So even you could, if you think you'd be tired at 10, you would not be tired at 10 p.m. while it's 4 p.m. In Montreal, you still don't want to take them. They're always bad for you. And then even if, just because you have the sleeping pill, just because you've been literally sedated, just because you're sedated, that doesn't necessarily mean you are asleep. You're just sedated. Do I eat my meals on French time even if I'm not hungry? Yes, actually. So our internal clock, it mainly uses sunlight, because that's really universal. The sun's been around for billions of years. And meals is just another cue to tell your body, because you can't eat in your sleep. Well, I guess you technically can, but that's very rare. But if you're eating, that means you're active. That means you're increasing your metabolism. You're intaking calories and energy and nutrients, and that tells your body it's time to be awake. Do I get up earlier a few days before my trip to get used to the French time zone? Yes. This doesn't mean for 3 days before your trip, you're waking up 2 hours earlier than you want. Then you're just purposely you're going to make yourself really, really tired. You're jet lagging yourself before you should. This is in the sense that, let's say, of the week leading up to this trip, slowly wake up 20 minutes in increments. So 20, let's say you want to wake up at 7 in the morning, and your trip is next Friday, but it's Sunday. Let's say Monday you want to wake up at 6:40, and then Tuesday you want to wake up at 6:20, and then Wednesday you wake up at 6, so on and so forth, to slowly move your clock back. You don't want to make it really intense. Do I do outdoor activities in the morning? Definitely. Well, being outside is great, but then you want to have more sunlight getting into your eyes and touching your skin, and then also if you're doing outdoor activities, just like with food, if you're moving in the morning, that tells your body, okay, this is the time to be awake and move around. So how does this internal clock play with this homeostatic process, this sleep pressure? So we have to sleep no matter what. And we need to have, well, 7 to 8 hours, depending on your age range. But when you need to do this sleep is depicted on this circadian rhythm, this internal clock. So these work by, with the longer you're awake, the more likely you are to sleep. And the internal clock works with that to coordinate when you do get sleepy with the sun. Because we navigate visually with our eyes, and then we need the sun to be able to do that. So that's why they work together. And this has been, humans have been like this for millions of years. Now, this internal clock, even though this homeostatic process is relatively the same in every single person, this internal clock can be different based on the different person as to when exactly people like to wake up. Not everyone likes to wake up at 7 a.m. Some people like to wake up a bit later or a bit earlier, and this is called a chronotype. When people tend to do tend to be better performing in the time of day. So the standard one, which is an average, is typically you want to go to bed around 11 p.m. and wake up around 7. But if you're a morning chronotype, you're going to want to prefer to do things in the morning. This is when you naturally want to wake up. You naturally want to go to bed earlier, and you naturally want to wake up earlier, and you're more likely to be more productive in the morning and perform better in the morning. And the other chronotype is called an evening chronotype. It's the opposite, where you want to stay up later and you want to wake up later. You tend to be more productive in the evening or in the afternoon or at night, and then in the morning you might be less productive. And this is different for everyone. And this like variability, these differences between people are very natural, and it's perfectly normal. Now, as we get older, this changes. Throughout the lifespan, and everyone knows that teenagers want to stay up late and go to bed late, and that's very normal. But as we get older, there's a shift from preferring the evening chronotype, and then as we get older, there's a shift for people preferring evening into morning as we get older. So like older adults would tend to prefer the morning over the evening, and that's perfectly fine. And there is a sex differences with this, where in females, the shift from this morning from an earlier age to the evening is less intense in males. And then therefore the shift from I guess young adulthood into older adulthood is less severe, but in the end, it ultimately aligns with the males. Now, how does this play with melatonin? How does this play with the actual biological clock that this hormone helps operate? So this melatonin levels in younger adults is much more intense at night compared to older adults here. There's literally the brain is literally not making nearly as much melatonin as it once did. And that means that this natural shift, like this decline of melatonin during the day and increase at night and vice versa, is not as intense. So this can mean that the internal clock that helps your body prepare to sleep is not as intense. That might mean the sleep quality can go down, and if the sleep quality can go down, that means your how you feel while you're awake cannot be as good. Because if you ask someone, how did you sleep? You can't actually ask someone during their sleep, how well did you sleep? People's ability to judge their own sleep is how they feel while they're awake. Now, there is this change in internal clock with age, but there's also a shift in the amount of hours older adults need, or at least from literally the entire lifespan. So from, I guess where am I? I'm in here. I'm in this age range. So this is, infancy through childhood, adolescence, and then into young adulthood here. So younger adults will need around not younger adults, just actually all older adults, yeah. Will need around 7 to 9 hours, and this ranges per person. And then even this range is huge. Some people need 6 hours, some people need 10 hours. and that's perfectly normal. Although I am people who say, oh, I only get 6 hours of sleep and I feel perfectly fine, and they drive me a little nuts because I need way more than 6 hours. So I guess for older adults, the sleep need decreases. Older adults will tend to need fewer hours, so 7 to 8 hours, and then even that can range. Like they might need 5 hours, they might need 9, and that really depends. And we go into sleep quality. So sleep quality also changes as we get older. So for younger adults, this is what's called a hypnogram. It's very standard. You're awake, and then you go into light sleep, you go into deep sleep, and then you're gonna go back up and you're gonna experience some REM sleep. And then from REM sleep, you go into back down into light sleep, into deep sleep, and so on and so forth. And this is just a normal cycle that happens on average. However, everyone normally wakes up for 10 seconds at a time at night. It's perfectly fine. It tends to happen less in younger adults, and this is related to sleep quality. And you don't really remember when you do wake up. That's the thing. For older adults, there is this typical trajectory of like you're awake, you go through the cycle, but older adults tend to wake up more frequently in the night. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In this example, there's 6 times this older adult woke up as compared to 2 times in this younger adult. And this is related to sleep quality, how fragmented the sleep is. And this is related to poor sleep quality in older adults. And as such, usually older adults tend to nap more for several reasons, but one of the big ones is that their sleep just naturally becomes more fragmented. With older age, that there's just more sleep disorders, more sleep issues, and that can result in poorer sleep quality during the night, and as such, you're going to nap more frequently during the day. And then I had something. No, I'll skip that. That's okay. This is my last scenario, and then I'll let Lylou take over after this. So at night, this is really common. At night, I lie in bed, tossing and turning without falling asleep for 40 minutes. What should I do? First, you don't want to be checking the clock when you're trying to fall asleep. When you're asleep, you don't really care about time because time doesn't exist when you're asleep. But the first you want to do, number 1, get out of bed. Get out of bed and do a calming activity. And this looks different for everyone. And I'm going to get into some more examples towards the end of this, but like, for example, reading a book. Lylou likes to read books to fall asleep, and that's perfectly fine. Some people like to read books in bed and they fall asleep, or in the living room. Other people, if you read a book, like that's going to engage their brain more. It's not as relaxing, and then that might keep them awake. It's going to really depend on you and what works best for you. For don'ts, don't stay in bed. If you stay in bed, you're going to worry about falling asleep, and you also want to avoid doing a stimulating activity. You don't want to what's an example? Don't watch a horror movie. That's going to keep you awake. And worrying about don't want to do that. So one thing is, it's generally good to avoid eating, especially a full meal, unless you're waking up hungry. If you're waking up hungry, then do eat. But generally, you want to avoid eating, because eating, like I said, from your internal clock, eating tells your brain, oh, we're awake. Like our brains want to think eating means hunting and gathering. And that means we need to be awake. And that's not good for us. You don't want to drink alcohol. Alcohol, it is a depressant. It is a drug. Alcohol is a drug. It is a depressant, but it worsens your sleep quality. You don't want to take a sleeping pill. Been over that. Sleeping pills are not good for you. You also want to avoid smoking cigarettes. If you wake up and you're like really jonesing, then maybe, but generally you want to avoid nicotine, because nicotine is a stimulant. So you want to avoid anything that stimulates you. So the second do column, number 2, you want to create your own, what's called a sleep ritual. And this is something, ritual is like a consistent behavior, or like, I guess, string of actions, to be really technical, that can lead to some sort of desired behavior. So, but this teaches your brain to relax, and then that teaches it to sleep. Me, for example, my ritual is that I like to sit down and have dinner. I'll watch an hour of TV maybe, and then after that, I'll do my own, like making sure my bed is ready. I have my own things, and that works for me. So to give you like a really famous example of how this works is, everyone's heard of Pavlov's dogs, where Pavlov rang a bell, and then gave dogs food, and the dogs began to salivate. He did this, I don't know, 20 times. And so by the end of it, Pavlov just rang the bell without any food, and the dogs began to salivate. That works too. So Lylou, for example, she'll read a book for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour.
A half hour.
Yeah, half hour.
Cup of tea.
Excellent. A cup of tea. So reading a book plus cup of tea plus being in bed, that's going to teach her brain that, oh, this is the ritual, it's time to sleep.
Yeah.
The thing you want to avoid doing is, like I said, with a horror movie, TV, like I like watching TV that helps calm me and relax me, but you want to make sure it's not something that is, like, TV is fine, but you want to make sure you're not like watching a show that leaves you on a cliffhanger. You're going to go to bed and think, oh, what did Molly meet Sally at the end of that thing? And we don't want to avoid that. Same thing for like drama and horror TV. If you watch Freddy Krueger right before going to bed, you're going to go to bed and you're going to worry about, am I going to see Freddy Krueger in my dream? So on that note, I'm going to move away from normal things that can go wrong with your sleep, and then Lilou's going to jump into, well, I guess some of the sleep disorders are normal, but more like pathological things that can go wrong with your sleep.
Thank you. All right. So yes, we were talking about healthy sleep habits, what to do, what not to do in more, we'll say, common scenarios. But it is also true that there are various sleep disorders that might affect your sleep. Here we have a graph of distribution of the various clinical sleep complaints that we might see. So we could have sleep and breathing disorders, so that we know as sleep apnea, something that's quite normal that could affect the quality of our sleep, particularly making it more fragmented, lowering the quality. It comes with a variety of symptoms, and it's definitely something that has a solution. We've heard maybe of CPAP machines. There's also apparatus for the mouth that help us breathe better. So if we can actually fix that breathing problem during sleep, then we can fix the sleep quality altogether this way. So that's a sleep disorder that's quite common. We also have parasomnia, or as we know, sleepwalking. We have circadian rhythm disorders. So that's, again, Sam mentioned the circadian rhythm, but that's something that's very important in regulating our sleep. What circadian rhythm disorders do is they will have a disruption of that cycle. So someone that has that disorder might be falling asleep during the day and then waking up during the night and have their wake sleep shift completely wrong. Then we have a disorder category that's much more rare, which we qualify as hypersomnia. Those are people that maybe sleep too much. We also know that as people that have narcolepsy. So that's a disorder where people can't really control when or where they'll fall asleep. Much more rare. So I'm not going to spend too much time on those disorders today. I'm actually going to be focusing on the most common disorder of all, which is insomnia. So what is insomnia? A lot of people might think that it's just characterized as a difficulty falling asleep, but that's actually just one aspect of insomnia. So you might be someone that suffers from insomnia because you have difficulty falling asleep, but it could also be difficulty maintaining the sleep and early awakenings. So earlier we saw with Sam the hypnograms. So this is a visualization of what your sleep looks like during the night based on the sleep stages that you go through. So in a good sleeper, we would see that there's going to be a fairly regular pattern in the hypnogram. So there's going to be regular coming and goings of different sleep stages. So here for a good sleeper, we'll have fewer awakenings. We'll have some time spent in deep sleep, sometimes spent in REM sleep. However, when we look at the hypnogram of an individual with insomnia, we'll see there's a bigger difference in the quality of the sleep. So we'll see that there's many more awakenings throughout the night, and there is definitely less time spent in deep sleep. Now, let's characterize what insomnia might look like, how it might start, what we call the vicious cycle of insomnia. We'll start with our example. So we have Paul. Paul sleeps 6.5 hours per night. But he just read an article in the newspaper that outlined that it's actually necessary to have 8 hours of sleep per night in order to sleep well. So now Paul will start worrying about his sleep. This will cause Paul to go to bed earlier and get up later because he really wants to spend 8 hours in bed. However, Paul might still sleep 6.5 hours at night because that was his sleep need. What that's going to do is he's going to start laying in bed and not sleeping. So now he's going to have some intrusive thoughts, some worries, some hyperarousal. So he might, his heartbeat might start to go faster because he's feeling anxious. He might start worrying, all these things. And those disturbations or perturbations during the night are going to cause Paul to have more and more disrupted daytime. So he might have more mood swings and more difficulty concentrating. Now, some might think that the solution for Paul's problem could be sleeping pills. We've discussed this with Sam earlier. That might be a common solution that a lot of people think of. In fact, currently in Canada, a quarter of people aged over 60 are using sleeping pills for more than 3 nights a week for more than 3 months. But these use of sleeping pills are generally not recommended. Actually, the American Association of Geriatry has been saying since the 1970s that we should not be prescribing sleeping pills for more than a month to older adults over the age of 60. The reason for that is that with short and long-term use come some side effects. These side effects include daytime sleepiness, some cognitive and attentional deficits, a loss of motor coordination, which could lead to an increased risk of falls and thus hip fractures, as well as a loss of concentration in general. So the recommendation ultimately is if you do need sleeping pills as sort of an emergency situation, you really, really need to get some sleep, you can always get a prescription. However, it has to be for short-term use. And there are some solutions so that do not require the use of sleeping pills and actually have been shown to work in order to improve insomnia symptoms. And that is the cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or what we call CBTi. So cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is a non-pharmacological treatment for insomnia. It's currently the standard of care in sleep research for insomnia. So we know that it has positive responses. So it offers all of the benefits of sleeping pills without the adverse side effects. It will usually occur with a psychologist that is specialized in sleep. And with CBTi, we see that there is a 60% positive response rate, along with a total of 40% of people who will have a total remission. So this therapy is really interesting because it will affect almost every aspect of insomnia that I mentioned earlier with our character Paul. So the goal of the therapy will be to restore the normal sleep pattern by rectifying the bad beliefs that we might have learned throughout our lives about sleep, as well as any harmful behavior about sleep that we might have. Now, for Paul, let's say he has gone through the cycle of CBTi, he has seen a psychologist, he has done the intervention. What would happen then? So Paul will now have learned that the need for sleep depends on each person. It's a very individualized need. And during the CBTi, Paul will have to then restrict back his time spent in bed, where he will learn that by spending less time awake in bed, he will be sleeping better. Paul has now learned that when he has intrusive thoughts or feels restless or anxious, he can use relaxation methods to help him fall asleep. Now, before we conclude with this portion of the presentation, I did want to spend some time briefly going over some statistics related to insomnia that might be surprising to you. So firstly, Canadian statistics have shown that insomnia is more common in women. So we're not all equal in facing this problem. The percentage of people with insomnia actually keeps keeps going up over the years. It keeps increasing. For example, in Canada, between 2005 and 2015, there was a 42% increase in nocturnal insomnia symptoms among the adults aged 18 years and older. So this is very important to note that this is an issue that keeps arising in our society. In Quebec, more than 50% of people aged 60 years old and over admit to having sleep problems, including difficulties falling asleep. And one of the reasons for that is that sleep does, as mentioned, become more fragile with age and is therefore also more vulnerable to various disturbances. It's also known as a general rule that insomnia is linked to an increase in symptoms of depression, anxiety, as well as a difficulty concentrating or remembering. So it's therefore really important to seek treatment when we're suffering from insomnia. This brings me to our role as researchers. Oh, is the I'm sorry, is the image that you're seeing not quite clear? No, it's not.
Does it look like hieroglyphics?
It's very strange.
Yes, it did. Yes,
That's
indeed.
bizarre.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea how. I've
I-
never seen it like this before.
Yeah, we've tested the presentation and it did not look like this, but
Okay.
okay.
Maybe
It's okay, I
Zoom
will-
was lacking sleep, so.
Yeah, so I will go over it verbally, but so it brings me to our role as researchers. So basically, how can we help people that suffer from insomnia? It's by producing more research to learn more about it and offering people interventions to try to aid them in their journey towards a better sleep. So this is actually a poster, which usually is all in English, I promise, about one of the studies that we're recruiting for currently with our lab. So we're looking for individuals with insomnia that are aged 60 years old and over, that have access to a smartphone at home, and that are interested in pursuing an at-home intervention for their sleep. So in order to participate in the study, you have to be either English or French speaking, over 60 years old of age, have access to at-home technology, internet, and for the chronology of these studies, so we're asking our participants over 14 weeks to fill out a sleep diary, go through the intervention, use sleep trackers, and this will allow us to get more information about the usefulness of technology as well in sleep interventions. I'm going to go through this in more details. So here is our criteria. So who can participate? People with insomnia, 60 years old and over.
Oh, that's weird.
There you go.
There you go.
So the current project that we're working on is aimed to assess to better understand how online CBTi will improve sleep, mental health, and brain health. The intervention was developed by researchers from our research centers, so the Institut Universitaire de Gériatrie de Montréal, located in Montreal, and the Royal Mental Health Research Center in Ottawa. We are currently looking for 50 adults that suffer from insomnia. We're looking for both men and women, again, aged over 60. The benefits of participating in health research in general, particularly in sleep labs, for example, would be to learn more about our sleep in general. We can contribute to research and contribute to the production of new knowledge, as well as, in this case, accessing an actual intervention to help our own health along with it. So this project is mainly done at home. We require our participants to attend 2 visits at the CRIUGM, so at the research center where we're located. There's a visit at the beginning and a visit at the end of the study. And that's during the first visit is where we explain the use of the equipment, the use of the intervention to our participants, along with performing some cognitive tasks with a researcher. I mentioned already, but the timeline of the study. So first, we meet at the research center. Then we ask our participants to use devices to track their sleep for 2 weeks. And then we have 10 weeks of intervention, all done online. And then we have the post-intervention again, where we're not doing the intervention anymore. We're just, again, using the devices to track our sleep, to give the researchers more information on our sleep habits. And then at the end, we have the visit back at the lab to give back the devices and then redo some cognitive tasks. And that's the whole of the study. Here are the devices that we use. So we have a sleep mattress that we install underneath a sleep mat that we install underneath the mattress of our participants. It's like a pressure sensor that allows us to get information about when they go to bed, when they get up, when they move. We also use a Fitbit smartwatch. You might have seen those around. They're getting really popular. We use those for our research to inform us again on sleep habits. And we have our own app that we ask our participants to use, where they will fill out a sleep diary, some surveys, play some games. So that's the whole of the study. Then for the CBTi, so the access comes from an online platform. We have 10 weekly videos to watch. So that's why the intervention is over 10 weeks. And there are some exercises to be performed, some little quizzes. Good thing is there's no control group, so all participants have access to the intervention right away. And so that's for our current project, but obviously we come from the research center at the Institut Universitaire de Gériatrie. So we have so many other labs that participate in different types of research. We also want to promote them a little bit so that if you're interested in research, if you're interested in health, you can always reach out to our research center via those informations. If you're interested in physical therapy, hearing loss, sleep, Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, all sorts of different studies. So thank you so much for your attention. Here I leave our information, and if you have any questions, we'll be ready to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Sam, and Lylou. That was really enlightening, especially the fact that I don't have to sleep 8 hours to have, because that, like, your example was really spot on for me, because I always just stress about not sleeping 7 or 8 hours, because because it adds more pressure to me thinking that I don't. But with your presentation, it kind of tamed my stress down a little bit.
Nice, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have 6 questions actually. So I'm gonna start with this one. I know you're familiar that we're the Alzheimer group, so a lot of our clients actually have neurocognitive decline or impairment. So one of the questions I have here is my husband has Alzheimer's and Parkinson. He sleeps a great deal, takes a nap in the morning and afternoon. Is this normal? I mean, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, it depends how far along in the where in the disease progression it is. I hear has Alzheimer's, sleeps a great deal. Is that normal? No. People with Alzheimer's actually don't sleep very well. So hearing that your husband sleeps well, that's really great. The more sleep someone with Alzheimer's gets, the better. Taking a nap in the morning and afternoon, that is also normal. Just typically people with these kind of pathologies do tend to have worse sleep quality and quantity. So taking a nap in the morning and afternoon is normal. There's also sleep apnea. Sleep apnea really goes hand in hand with dementias. So there might be some sleep apnea going on, making the sleep quality at night worse. And then if the sleep quality at night is worse, then that would mean more napping. So if your husband's sleeping a great deal, then great.
Yeah.
Hope that keeps happening.
No, if I can add as well, right? It's sometimes, as you said, it depends on where the person is at the stage of the disease. So sometimes if they're in the earlier stages, that can be a little bit worrying on my end, because it means that maybe the person is actually withdrawing and just having sleep as a how do you say this, as they're coping. But then in the long run, it's a little bit scary if they are really switching their days and night, because it will really impact their quality of life, right? So
Really does.
but it's good to actually really monitor it, and then help with sometimes regulating, because people with Alzheimer's and dementia, as they advance, they have difficulty regulating those kind of things, right? So they need a person from the outside to prompt them and to give them cues that that can help them get a routine. So I just want to add it out there. Okay. Another question is why would I wake up almost every night at 3 a.m.? It takes a while to fall back asleep.
I can.
Up to you. I have an answer. It's as you wish.
So that's definitely something that can happen if you have insomnia. So waking up in the middle of the night is definitely something that it could be the reason why you're doing that is because you might have insomnia. Some people think that in order to qualify as someone with insomnia, it has to be that you have an issue falling asleep. It doesn't have to be like that. It could really be like you're falling asleep perfectly fine, but then every time at 3 a.m, like you say, you're just waking up. That could qualify you as someone that has insomnia, in which case, then, like we mentioned, there are treatments. Following an intervention like CBTi could be really helpful, but there are also other reasons why you might be waking up in the middle of the night. I think Sam mentioned sleep apnea could be one of them. So that's something that you can also bring up with your general practitioner. So if your doctor can help you go through the steps of doing a sleep apnea tests just to see if you have other concurrent symptoms that might explain your awakenings at night, that might be helpful.
And then like some people like sleep, you're not unconscious when you're asleep, your brain is still active, there's still a different state of consciousness. So I tell some of my students, like if you're generally an anxious person, then your sleep will also might be anxious and you might waking up at 3 a.m. That might be normal. Like humans, like they're like humans, like I don't know, for like a century in like the 1700s would wake up in the middle of the night and do, I don't know, write a letter, eat a meal, and then go back to bed, and that was perfectly normal. So if you're waking up at 3 a.m., if your sleep quality is still fine, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if your sleep quality is not as good, or if it really does take you a long time to fall back asleep, but especially if you're worried about it, but like you just
Yeah, I would say like the key is if you're worried about it, because if you don't feel rested, that is a big indicator that it's an issue. If you're waking up and you're feeling really rested in the morning, then it's less of an issue.
yeah.
Okay. Could be like where you're at especially for women, right? If you are at a menopausal stage, there's also like an indication that it's like I mean it gives you an idea, but you should still go to the doctor, right?
Yes.
Have it addressed. Okay. Is taking melatonin recommended for seniors?
Generally, no. Like for one of my studies, it's in like healthy, good sleeping people and younger adults, but also for older adults. And if you take melatonin, we'll exclude you. You're considered because it's a confound. So if I would talk to your doctor, actually, your doctor would be the best person to ask. Generally, I would say no, but it really depends on the person.
Okay.
You take melatonin and you sleep better, then it's kind of hard to say no to that.
Okay. So is it considered as a sleeping pill or no? It's different, right? Like
No, it's an internal clock hormone. So like I mean, literally every single cell in your body except red blood cells literally have a clock. That's a chemical reaction that takes 12 hours to start and then 12 hours to finish. And melatonin just tells them like when there's a master clock, and melatonin is a part of the master clock telling all the other little tinier clocks what time it is.
okay.
And just because it's nighttime, that just necessarily mean that sleep isn't the only thing our body prepares to do at night. It also wants to rest, it wants to maybe not necessarily be as active, it wants to repair itself a bit more. But
Food.
digest food. Like blood flow increases, your liver metabolism changes, your skin, like the temperature of your skin changes, and that's all just to adapt to nighttime. And sleep, it just so happens to be, the most common thing people think of nighttime for internal clocks.
Okay. How does scrolling through social media before bedtime affect sleep?
I can let you take this one.
So yeah, definitely not super recommended for several reasons. Just not necessarily just social media, but using your phone at night, having a screen that's like super close to your face like this, it emits what we call blue light. And so the way that your melatonin again is produced is mainly because there's the absence of light. So when it becomes nighttime, there's the absence of light, and that will stop your melatonin production from being inhibited. So you're going to have more melatonin produced. It tells your body, I need to go to sleep. I need to do my nighttime activities. If you have a light, an artificial light even, up in your face, like the blue light from your phone, this is going to prevent the melatonin from being produced. And that might have an effect then on whether or not you're able to fall asleep as quickly. So again, if you're someone that's not struggling with sleep at all, it might not impact you. Like Sam watches TV for an hour. TV is not as bad because if the screen is a little further away, but if he doesn't have problems sleeping and he's watching a screen and he can still go to sleep, it's not the end of the world. It's more so if you're someone that's already struggling with your sleep, that's definitely not going to be a habit that's going to be helpful. Yeah.
And then
Okay.
a blue light filter helps, but all light tells the brain all light informs us the sun might be up or
Yeah.
about to come up.
That's actually a good, like when you bring up the point of having a routine in order to tell your body
Yeah.
that it's time to go to sleep, lowering the lights is also a really good thing
Yeah.
to do to
That's
tell your
what I-
body that it's time.
Yeah.
So some people are saying like at least don't look at your phone 2 hours before you go to bed. Is
Yeah.
that something that you would
That's-
recommend?
Oh, definitely recommend it, but
Okay.
that is good for our biology, but in practice, it's incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what does REM mean?
I can answer this. So
Okay.
REM is an acronym. It stands for Rapid Eye Movement Sleep. So it's a type of sleep where literally your eyes are doing this in your sleep. And it's a type of sleep. It's also called paradoxical sleep because when you look at your brain while you're in this stage, your brain looks like you're awake. And we don't know why. But that's what REM means. So, and then the other type of sleep is literally called non-REM sleep. So, it's scientists like, what are we going to call this type of sleep? Well, are your eyes moving? Yes. Okay, your rapid eye movement sleep. What about the other type? Are your eyes not moving? No. Okay, then it's non-REM sleep.
9 months.
That's what that means.
Okay. Oh, that was like it's okay. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Is magnesium recommended as a sleep aid?
It can be. It'll vary per person. I know magnesium is used to help, I guess, treat what's called, I'm sure people may have heard restless leg syndrome. It's where you have this like sensation and motivation to like move one of your legs or another part of your body, normally your legs, at like a repeated behavior that's not very intense. And that can, restless leg syndrome can really impact like how long it takes you to fall asleep.
Yeah.
And also with insomnia. So like if it helps you sleep, great. If it
Okay.
doesn't help you sleep, then maybe not. But
Yeah.
in the end, this is the kind of thing you'll need to talk to your doctor about.
Okay. Any food you think that can help increase melatonin? I don't know if you.
Actually, that's actually a good question. I don't believe there's any food that can help you increase your melatonin intake or increase melatonin like production, the amount your brain makes. There are like the internal clock it's really hard to manipulate internal clock with specific nutrients. So it's more about the calories and energy intake from the food. That might help undo the melatonin, and then light will undo the melatonin. And then I'm gonna bust a myth. People have all heard about tryptophan. Well, at least I'm from Boston, so there's Thanksgiving is celebrated in Canada. So you have a turkey. Turkey has tryptophan in it. Your body breaks tryptophan down. That makes you sleepy. It's a myth. It's not true. Tryptophan doesn't actually make you sleepy. From like eating from eating turkey. It's actually the sheer amount of calories we eat, and it's the spike in insulin in the blood to reduce that sugar that makes you sleepy.
Okay.
I just wanted to bust that myth real
I
quick.
had never.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So it means that, like, as you said, calorie and everything impacts your sleep as well. I guess like it's generally I hear that like you should eat 3 hours before you go to bed. Is that how you would?
It depends.
That goes into the idea of if you eat, it tells your body, I need energy, I need to be active, I need to do things. So if you eat right before you mean to be going to sleep, it's going to be very confusing for your body. I don't know if there's an actual guideline on like how many hours per se.
Usually it's 2.
Yeah.
Like 2 is
Two?
like I normally do 2. That helps my digestive system really kind of, deal with everything. It's like, oh, okay, good, we got this stuff now, and then everything's going along, and then I can go to bed. So I know some people like prefer to have a really big meal and their stomach is full, and then they're like, oh, I can't wait to lie down and go to sleep. So it varies per person, but in general, you want to avoid eating a big meal shortly
Before
before.
going to bed. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Sam and Lylou, thank you very much. But before I know there were some questions as well about the studies and everything. If you don't mind sending it to us so that we could, because this is recorded, right? Like, I mean,
Yep.
so this recording will be sent to all of you, ladies and gentlemen who are here this afternoon. So if you have, so I would like to request actually Sam and Lylou, if you could also send us information about the different studies that you have mentioned so that we could like attach it to the email once the video is done, the recording of this video is done to our to the people who are here with us this afternoon. That would be really great because I think I saw 2 or 3 who are interested in knowing more about it. Too bad it's only for 60 people and older. I still
That's
have
okay.
40 years. I'm just joking.
Go 4 years. It's still okay. We can
Okay.
we'll take everyone 16 over. We're happy to.
Okay. How about like 20? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, thank you very much for your presentation today,
Thank you.
and good luck to your studies, and hopefully
Thank you.
you do more so that we'll have how do you say, more knowledge about like how we can improve our sleep and everything. Anyway, have a great afternoon. Thank you very much, and for everyone, please feel free to contact here us here at AJI. Okay.
Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.